The murders of John List's family shocked the nation. His wife, his mother, his children, all killed by the man who was supposed to protect them. And for years, he walked free, hidden in plain sight. It took the reach of the TV show America's Most Wanted to finally bring him down. Media matters, awareness matters. Talking about these cases isn't just storytelling, it's justice in action. Evidence obscured becomes evidence revealed, and it's cases like the John List family killing that are the reason why the true crime community exists. There is power in spreading awareness, so much so that one of the coolest, most elusive killers in American history could finally be brought to justice. Let's get into it. On December the 7th, 1972, in Westfield, New Jersey, just 15 miles from New York City, police were called to do a welfare check on the List family mansion. No one in the neighborhood had seen 46-year-old John and Helen List, their 3 teenage children, or John's 84-year-old mother in a month. The lights in the house were kept on day and night, but after a month of being on nonstop, they started burning out one by one. That's when neighbors called authorities. Up until that point, they just assumed that the already quiet family were just out of town and had left the lights on by accident. But that wasn't the case at all. When police entered the house, they walked into religious music playing loudly from the ballroom. When they went in to switch off the music, they found 4 bodies neatly laid out on the floor. Helen, 13-year-old Frederick, 15-year-old John, and 16-year-old Patricia were all lined up, placed on sleeping bags. And upstairs, in her attic apartment, was List's mother, 84-year-old Alma, all shot in the head, execution style, with the exception of the middle child, John, who'd been shot multiple times. The only one that was missing was John List Sr., but the letter in the study would make it starkly clear what had happened. The 5-page confession was addressed to the family's longtime Lutheran pastor, explaining that he killed his wife, mother, and 3 children to ensure their salvation, claiming that he feared that they would stray from Christianity and face damnation. He wrote that he was certain they had gone to heaven and described the murders as a way to spare them from the poverty that they would have faced because List was bankrupt. So far, the crime scene was brutal and utterly tragic, but hardly a mystery, right? Wrong. The amount of planning that the quiet, devout, and wealthy accountant put into this horrendous mass murder was nothing short of astounding. And it's that ingenious planning that led to him avoiding capture for 18 whole years. A month before the bodies were discovered, on November the 9th, which was also the same day List killed his entire family, he mailed letters to each of his children's schools, notifying their educators that the family would be traveling to Helen's mother, who was very ill, to help care for her. This was true. Helen's aging mother had been ill for quite some time, so no one questioned this complete lie. He stopped mail and milk deliveries to the house in the same way. He then went into the house, shot his wife while she was sitting at the kitchen table, and then he shot his mother upstairs. Alma tried to get up to run and fell backwards after being struck above the left eye. He moved Helen to the ballroom and placed her on top of a sleeping bag, but he was unable to move his mother because she was too heavy. Then, List waited by the door for his children to return home from school. Patricia and Frederick entered through the kitchen, threw down their school bags, and were promptly shot before they even had time to react. Patricia was hit in the head, and Frederick was hit twice in the chest. List then made himself a hearty lunch, I know, creepy, and drove over to 15-year-old John's school and watched his son's soccer game. He drove John back home. Unfortunately, John's death wasn't quick. Johnny was shot first in the kitchen, but he survived. List then shot his son 9 more times until there was no question that the boy was dead. All 3 children were placed next to their mother on more sleeping bags. After that, List had another hearty meal and went to bed for the evening. The next morning, the psycho, who just slept like a baby, walked straight past the ballroom where his family lay dead and turned down the thermostat, allowing the cold New York November to seep into the house, helping to preserve the bodies. This would keep any odors in check for months while their bodies slowly froze. For the next few hours, List cleaned the areas where each victim was killed and meticulously cut his face out of every picture in the house. He then put the pictures back into their frames and replaced them on their mantles and hooks on the walls. Then, he packed a few essentials and drove to Kennedy Airport, where police would find his abandoned car a month later, just 2 days after they discovered the bodies. Naturally, the manhunt that ensued was enormous, but the chase was ice cold from the get-go. With a month's head start, List had long since disappeared. Even after the media coverage cooled down, the FBI still released age progression photos every year to remind the public to look out for List. They even constructed an age-progressed bust of List's face to display to the public, hoping for someone to recognize him. Unfortunately, he's got a pretty nondescript face, so you can imagine that this led to a lot of sightings that turned out to be innocent middle-aged men all over the country that led absolutely nowhere. But it did at least give investigators enough time to piece together a motive. A man doesn't just wake up one day and kill his entire family, after all. It turns out that List had experienced a number of minor setbacks through the years that just piled up over time, leading to an eventual breakdown, starting with his marriage to Helen. She lied to List, telling him she was pregnant so that he'd marry her. Though they'd eventually have 3 children together, List was always resentful of the deception. Furthermore, his job as an accountant wasn't taking off as he'd hoped. He was in his late 30s before he found work at a bank that allowed them the upper-class life that his qualifications expected. But they were living well beyond their means. The mansion in Westfield was ridiculously expensive to upkeep, and they could only do so by inviting List's overbearing mother to live with them. Thanks to Alma's wealth, they managed to stay in Westfield, but at the expense of Alma's constant interference in their marriage. By 1966, he lost his high-paying job, his wife was a full-blown alcoholic, and it came out that she'd had syphilis, contracted from her previous marriage. The condition, coupled with her excessive drinking, made Helen erratic and unpredictable. List felt that she and his interfering mother were a burden. List hid his unemployment from the family for 5 years. He took up odd jobs where he could find them, but eventually he'd burned through his mother's inheritance. His savings and his debts were so astronomical that there was no way out but to file for bankruptcy. He considered filing for bankruptcy, abandoning his family to the welfare system, and even ending his own life. But like all cowards, List chose to kill them all instead. In his mind, the shame of bankruptcy was unbearable, and taking one's own life was a mortal sin. So apparently, this selfish sicko saw only one other option left: killing his kids and fleeing like the lowly dog he truly was. To List, poverty and failure was an even greater sin than murder. After the murders, List went on a little holiday, because he's got no emotions, and relocated to Denver, where he changed his name to Robert P. Clark. He worked as a cook for a few years, re-entered into the accounting space, and even got married to a woman he met at his new church. Seriously, this guy committed the murders and then went on to live life like he didn't have a care in the world. No remorse, no regrets, and barely a thought spared to the children who'd once called him daddy. It would be the hit show that we all grew up on that finally solved the case. Yep, America's Most Wanted. America's favorite crime show featured the case in 1989. And not just our favorite show, List himself was a huge fan too. Between work, puttering around in the garden, and being a boring accountant, he had one constant: he never missed an episode of America's Most Wanted. This time, the tips that came in were legit, because they all came from the same neighborhood in Denver, from residents who were sure that the new couple who'd moved in and joined their church was John List, only they knew him as Bob Clark, the quiet accountant that grew roses in his garden. He was arrested at his work on June 1st, 1989, at the age of 63. Police had never stopped looking for the man who killed his own kids, his wife, and his elderly mother. And I have to say, their persistence shows. I've never looked into a case that stood cold this long, that had its evidence stored so immaculately. The trial was quick and brutal thanks to the outstanding order that authorities kept with this case. He tried the age-old angle of innocent by reason of insanity. But when that got him 5 life sentences, he tried to appeal by claiming PTSD from his time in the war. Funny thing though, he never once showed remorse for the deaths of his children. Never did he show any indication that he thought what he had done was sad, morally wrong, or even that it took any kind of emotional toll on him. He thought his family was a burden to him, and instead of handling the problem, he simply got rid of them the same way you'd get rid of a bug inside your house. That's how much empathy and emotion he put behind his abhorrent actions. He equated the death of 3 innocent children to nothing more than getting rid of an inconvenience. Of all the killers I've done, List is by far the most disturbing. Even the worst serial killers found enjoyment in their crimes, or they found the hurt, the game, and avoiding detection somehow satisfying. But List didn't enjoy or despise what he did. To him, it was all mechanical. He was so utterly detached from the horror of what he did that he couldn't even conceive that a jury would need to see at least some fake emotion from him. If anything, the world's reaction confused him. To John List, killing the only 5 family members he had was as logical as the perfectly balanced books at his accounting job. And that, my friends, chills me to the bone. Thanks for tuning in today. If you found this case breakdown compelling, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into hidden truths, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective is what keeps our lights on over here. See you in the next one, people.